guys, this is not my normal day of posting this review, but I've been riding the struggle bus a little bit, and it's actually been a while since I've even finished reading anything. Like, I'm not even talking like romance novels, I'm talking like anything. So even though this isn't my normal day, I'm just really happy to get this review out because it's already been delayed, even though this is going to be an ARC review, so thank you to the publisher and Edelweiss for my advanced review copy. The book that we're about to talk about today is already out because I'm working on it, okay? But I really wanted to talk about this book with you because it was not what I expected, and not necessarily in good ways, but also in some ways where I feel like had I known this before I started, I might have even been more excited about it. This is a weird one, and we're gonna talk about it. So the book in question is called The Great Dating Fake-Off by Livy Hart. Livy Hart has at least 3 other novels that I can see out on Goodreads and Storygraph. I have not read any of them, and this will come into play later in the review. But The Great Dating Fake-Off is the story of Nora and Sebastian, and I'm going to do my own kind of like discussion of the plot, but I do want to kind of read you some highlights from the description from the back of the book. So it begins with Nora D'Amato would do almost anything for her best friend. Pretend she's smitten with him to get his overly invested Italian family off his back? Absolutely. Attend a wedding for said overbearing family? Bring it. Spend the next 6 days at a posh resort watching the bride and groom's family hate on each other? Pass the popcorn. There's only one tiny little hiccup. Nora's crush and the object of some very inappropriate thoughts is here too, and looking so delectable that she could spoon him faster than stracciatella gelato in a heat wave. But Sebastian Rossi isn't available, officially. He's here with his fake wedding date, and he owes her big time for keeping an eye on his Nona while he's away months at a time for work. And there's a little bit more, I'm just going to skip to the end. And a wedding war zone with 2 feuding families is not the time or place for flirting or sexy sneaking around. Everyone is watching. This wedding is one slipped facade away from a catastrophe, and if Nora and Sebastian can't keep to their own sides of the aisle, they risk exposing the very secrets they're sworn to protect. Okay, so I don't normally read the whole back of the book like that, but I really wanted to give you a sense of what I came in expectation-wise with this book. First of all, I was very excited because the wedding takes place in the Adirondacks, and I'm from the Adirondacks, and I wanted to know if they were going to like place name, even if it was like a pretend hotel or something. They didn't, and that made me sad. But so I expected this book to have some fake dating weirdness, because they're both there with fake dates, right? But for it to take place entirely at this wedding, for it to take place like entirely like the sneaking around thing. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that part of the plot was not super interesting to me. I actually thought it was going to be very like anxiety producing for me. I read it anyway. And then when I started the book, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm really glad I gave it this chance because of the way that the plot immediately unfolds. And so I'm going to do my own interpretation of this. So this plot begins, Nora is working at the bookshop that she manages, and this guy comes in. He works for the Boys and Girls Club of America, and he's looking for a place to do tutoring for students. They immediately start flirting. They give each other their first names. It's Nora and Sebastian having this meet cute in the bookstore. And then Nora's boss and best friend, Ben, this is a very Italian book, and he's from an Italian family, and for the entirety of the book where we're with this family, they call him Benito, and I like just can't. I just call him Benito in my head now. So he comes rolling in with his sister and his mom, and you get things from the conversation very quickly. First is that his sister is getting married, and the second is that they really want him to have a date, and the third is that his mother is extremely strong on the matchmaking. And Nora, because she feels very indebted to Benito, it's not his name, sorry, she just like kind of rolls up and pretends to be his girlfriend. Sebastian is very confused. He leaves. And you know, Benji is like, you do have no idea what you've just signed yourself up for. But it makes his mom and sister very happy that he apparently has a secret girlfriend. And so they are invited to his sister's wedding. They get there and come to find out that Sebastian is also there with a date named Alicia. Now, in the Sebastian POV chapters that you get before this, because it is dual POV, Alicia's the twin sister of the groom of this wedding, and Sebastian is normally traveling a lot for the Boys and Girls Club of America, and so his cousin, Alicia, has been watching his grandmother while he's been away. He has come home to help fix up his grandmother's house, which was in dire need of repair. So Alicia is gay, and she is in a very committed relationship with the woman hired as the caterer for this event. But since the family is very Italian Catholic, she does not want to engage in questions or have people, you know, being rude to her girlfriend or, you know, any of that type of stuff. So she asks Sebastian to be her fake date. Now, immediately, right, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be so awkward, because Nora and Sebastian are both there to help their respective fake dating partners. There's this whole thing where these two families like hate each other. There's like lore going back to like when they were in Italy, and then when they immigrated over here, there's even more lore. There's like sheep stealing involved. It's a whole thing. And so you kind of get the sense immediately like, oh my God, this is going to be really awkward, because like Sebastian and Nora meet up in the line, like waiting to check into this hotel. And it's like very clear. There are sparks flying. They are very, very attracted to each other. And it's like really hard to hide. And I was like, oh my God, like, it's like so awkward, because they have people that they are here and trying to protect from their respective families, and like they're on either sides. It's just, oh God, this is just gonna be so cringe inducing. Well, here's the thing. Nora and Benji are so bad at being a fake couple that Alicia and Sebastian catch on immediately while they're waiting in line for their rooms. And so like Alicia just goes on and spills the beans. She's like, yeah, we are also in a fake dating relationship. And so first of all, that frees Nora and Sebastian from like having to sneak around behind the backs of their friends, which I thought was going to be very awkward. But also like they enter into like a pact that they will help each other like present their fake relationship to the world. And since neither of their respective partners, for a variety of reasons, are actually like into Nora or Sebastian, they are also just like, oh, it's very clear that you two are into each other. Like, maybe we shouldn't do this fake dating thing. And they're like, no, no, no. So yeah, that was like a huge weight off my shoulders, like right away at the beginning of this book. And I thought that it made for a much more interesting story. However, this book from this point diverges with the expected plot in ways that I think could have been good, but also like just weren't great. And so first of all, Benji is lying to his family about him like really being with Nora, and this is really awkward. More of Alicia's family, like the groom, is in on the fact that her relationship is fake. And so like there's like some people in the know and some people who aren't. But like, it's very clear, like Nora and Sebastian just have the hots for each other. There are so many characters involved in this. They are two very, very large Italian families, like I said, with huge lore going back to before all of these families immigrated here. Benji has a really good relationship with his grandfather, Santino. Like I said, it's his sister who's getting married. His mother is very involved. I think his father is somewhere. And there was a lot of pressure on him to go back to law school, but he doesn't want to go back to law school. He wants to get a PhD in something else. I can't really remember. So like there's that drama. Alicia, like I said, is a lesbian, and she's trying to hide that relationship from her family, but her girlfriend is there in the guise of the caterer. There's like a catering mishap at one point that they all have to help out with. But then, like I said, the groom is her twin brother and he knows things. And like there's her grandmother who's a very strict person who's like really up in her business. And then there are multiple other family members running around. Not to mention the whole fact that the bride and groom of this wedding are basically like Romeo and Juliet without the death at the end, like bringing together these two families that hate each other. And there's a whole lore to their backstory that is kind of brought out throughout the novel about how they started dating and how their relationship was basically secret until they got engaged. And so this has kind of all been sprung on both families who had no idea this was going on. Guys, there's a lot. There's a lot. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, I have missed another book. There is another book of character development somewhere out here where the couple that's currently the bride and groom got their own book, and this is a follow-up. It just wasn't tagged in any way on like Storygraph, Edelweiss, Goodreads, but like this has to be a second book because I am overwhelmed by all of these characters. And by the way, Nora and Sebastian have nothing to do with. So like I said at the beginning, I have never read another Livy Hart book, right? So I was like, okay, well, you know, this has happened to me before. I've done these reviews before. It's fine. I'll get through it. And actually, I'm really interested in this love story and maybe I'll go back and read that book. That book doesn't exist. As far as I can tell, unless someone wants to tell me that it's somewhere on the internet, this book is a standalone. There is no book with this couple. There should be, because this book, which is not about really, like this is supposed to be Nora and Sebastian's book, right? But it is overwhelmed by these two giant Italian families and the relationship of the bride and the groom that again, Nora and Sebastian are just operating on the outskirts of, right? Like they really don't know any of these people. They're not really related to any of this family. And so it feels super weird to have Nora and Sebastian trying to have this romance in the middle of a story that is very invested in the drama of these other two families. And so the book really begins to, I think, unbalance itself with everything that it's trying to do. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything, okay? So I have to be really vague here. But this book does not take place entirely at this wedding. Things happen and the story like continues on past the wedding. And I would argue that some of the most interesting things about the book are past the wedding. Again, though, they're very involved in the lives of the other characters as Nora and Sebastian are just kind of orbiting each other because they have now been brought into like a collective family situation. So again, I don't want to spoil anything in case you want to read it, but the description of this book, I really don't think does it justice. At first, because I really think if you had leaned into the hijinks, that like everybody knows that they're all fake dating, it would have been more interesting for me to pick up. I picked it up anyway, because I thought it would at least be a little bit interesting, and also I enjoyed the setting. But then I picked it up for the setting that is then not there, I would argue, at least I think halfway through the book. So again, I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm really just unclear, honestly, why this book, if the bride and groom characters were not already their own book, why this book is not their book. Because the book seems way more invested in them and their extended families than it really seems in Nora and Sebastian, which really just, their love story turns into a vehicle to tell this other story. There are spicy scenes, you know, I do believe that Nora and Sebastian really care for each other, and I think there is a really interesting relationship dynamic and discussion of what it means, and like when you love someone, like what do you do when, you know, your life and your career might go a different direction, and what do you want out of life, and is it career, is it love? Like, there is a really, really interesting discussion about that, and I'm really happy with the way that it resolves at the end of the book. And that is very them focused, but it really does feel like it takes all the way to the end of the book for them to really be the focus of it, when like all of this other family drama has been resolved. And I don't know, it felt really unbalanced to me. I ended up giving this book about 3.5 stars. I did find the writing really accessible. Like, I read it basically in one sitting. I really did want to know how the story was going to play out. But again, the story that I was invested in was not necessarily the actual romance of the romance book, but rather like this whole other thing going on in the background. And Nora and Sebastian's romance just ended up kind of being a plus, which again is weird. So I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the book, but like that's why I spent so much time reading the description that is on Goodreads, and now hopefully you seeing that the emphasis of the book is really in different places. So I think if you're more aware of that going into it, you will be able to set your expectations more correctly, rather than just being like, what is happening right now? So that is why I, even though this review is a little bit late and off kilter, and I think I've just been like babbling a little bit, I really wanted to get this out to you in case you were interested in reading it. Weirdly, because of Livy Hart's like interest in telling these broader family stories, I'm actually very interested in reading other books by her, because that is one of my favorite things to see in romance novels, where they aren't just focused on the main couple and there's more interesting or deeper things going on, especially with the resolution to this relationship. Thought that was really wonderful, but just maybe not this book. So that is my review. Thank you guys so much. And if you've read any others, let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye!